right, buckle up, Royal Watchers, because today we're diving into what might be the most passive-aggressive piece of royal correspondence since Henry VIII sent his divorce papers. Meghan Markle allegedly put pen to paper and fired off a letter to King Charles himself. And let me tell you, this wasn't your typical thanks for the tea and crumpets note. No, no, no. This was a full-blown we need to talk about the rules situation. And honestly, I'm living for the drama. So grab your finest china because we're about to spill some serious royal tea. Before we get into the juicy details, if you love diving deep into royal drama and want to stay updated on everything happening behind those palace walls, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of the chaos. Trust me, you'll want to be here for what's coming. Now, let's set the scene. Picture this. Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, former actress, current Californian resident, sitting down with what I can only imagine was a very expensive fountain pen, crafting a letter to the King of England. Not a text, not an email, a proper letter. And the subject line, if letters had subject lines, would have read, "Why exactly are the rules different for me?" And honestly, can you blame her for asking? Here's what we know. Since Meghan and Harry made their dramatic exit from royal life back in 2020, which, by the way, was literally more shocking than any season finale of The Crown, Meghan has been absolutely roasted for speaking publicly about her experiences within the firm. People have called her everything from ungrateful to attention-seeking, and the British tabloids have had an absolute field day. But here's the plot twist that nobody seems to want to talk about. Meghan apparently tried to handle this privately first. She didn't just go straight to Oprah, despite what some people might think. She actually attempted to resolve things the proper royal way, behind closed doors, with a private letter to King Charles. According to reports, this wasn't just a casual "hope you're well" letter. Meghan allegedly laid out her concerns about the different rules she had to follow compared to other members of the royal family. And when I say different rules, I'm talking about the kind of restrictions that would make anyone question whether they'd accidentally joined a medieval monastery instead of a modern royal family. The letter was essentially Meghan saying, "Hold on a minute, why can't I do this when Fergie over here is literally doing morning television?" And you know what? That's actually a pretty fair question. Now, let's talk about what veteran royal watcher Neil Sean revealed in one of his YouTube videos, because this is where things get properly interesting. According to Sean, Meghan didn't just want to vent on paper, she wanted answers, real, actual explanations. She reportedly tried to set up a face-to-face meeting with King Charles, which honestly takes some serious confidence. Imagine requesting a one-on-one with the king to basically ask him, what's the deal with all these rules? That's not just bold, that's borderline revolutionary in royal terms. Sean explained that Meghan wanted to discuss the problems she encountered ever since becoming a member of the British monarchy. And let's be real here, when someone says they've encountered problems in the royal family, that's probably the understatement of the century. We're talking about an institution that's been around for over 1,000 years, with more traditions than a Christmas market and more protocols than a NASA launch sequence. So yeah, problems is putting it mildly.
But here's where the plot really thickens, and honestly, this is the bit that makes Meghan's frustration completely understandable. She reportedly felt that she was being treated differently from other extended family members, and the example that apparently made her blood boil was Sarah Ferguson. Yes, Fergie, the Duchess of York, the woman who's been divorced from Prince Andrew since the 90s and yet somehow still manages to pop up on British television, sell books, and do commercial work while billing herself as the Duchess of York. Now, I don't know about you, but if I were Meghan, I'd be asking the same questions. Here's Sarah Ferguson, who's technically not even a working royal anymore, appearing on This Morning and Loose Women, promoting various projects, doing what appears to be adverts, all while still using her royal title. Meanwhile, Meghan was apparently getting her knuckles rapped for even thinking about maintaining her own career.
The double standard is so obvious you could see it from space. Let's break this down with a bit of perspective, because the rules around what royals can and cannot do have always been about as clear as mud. Working royals aren't supposed to profit from their positions or use their titles for commercial gain. That's the theory, anyway. But in practice, it's always been a bit of a grey area, especially for those on the fringes of the family. Minor royals have written books, done television work, and pursued various business ventures with varying degrees of success and scandal. But when Meghan wanted to continue acting or pursue other professional interests, that was apparently a hard no. And when you look at someone like Fergie still out there doing her thing, you can understand why Meghan would feel like the rules were being applied rather selectively. This is the part where we need to acknowledge something that often gets brushed under the very expensive royal carpet. Meghan was held to a different standard from day one. Whether you want to attribute that to her being American, her background as an actress, her biracial heritage, or simply because she was a newcomer who didn't grow up understanding the bizarre unwritten rules of British aristocracy, the fact is the scrutiny she faced was intense and often brutal. So when she's writing to the king asking why the rules seem to apply differently to her than they do to Fergie, it's not just about professional freedom, it's about fairness and consistency. Now, we don't know exactly what King Charles's response was to this letter, or if he even responded at all. The royal family aren't exactly known for their transparency when it comes to internal communications. For all we know, the letter could still be sitting on some gilded desk in Buckingham Palace, filed under awkward conversations we'd rather not have. But what we do know is that whatever happened behind the scenes, it clearly wasn't enough to resolve Meghan's concerns, because shortly after, she and Harry made their exit. And let's talk about that exit for a second, because 5 years later, it's still the most talked about royal departure since Edward VIII abdicated for love. Meghan and Harry are now firmly established in California, raising their 2 children, Prince Archie, who's now 6, and Princess Lilibet, who's 4. They've just spent their 7th Christmas away from the royal family, their 6th in the United States, and by all accounts they've built themselves a life that's about as far removed from palace protocol as you can possibly get. But here's the thing that I find absolutely fascinating. Even after all this time, after the Oprah interview, after the Netflix documentary, after Harry's book, the conversation still comes back to this fundamental question that Meghan raised in that letter. Why were the rules different for her? And nobody from the palace has ever really given a satisfactory answer to that question. Instead, there's been a lot of no comment, a lot of recollections may vary, and a whole lot of silence, which, if we're being honest, is pretty damning in itself. Think about it this way. If you started a new job and you noticed that your colleague could do things that you were explicitly told you couldn't do, and when you asked why nobody could give you a straight answer, you'd probably start looking for a new job pretty quickly. Now multiply that by about 1 million, because you're living in a palace, every move you make is photographed and criticized, and your colleague is literally selling books on daytime television while you're being told that even keeping your acting career is inappropriate. Suddenly moving to California and starting fresh doesn't seem so dramatic, does it? The reality is that the royal family has always operated on a system of unwritten rules, traditions, and frankly favoritism. Some people get away with things that others would be crucified for, and the decision about who falls into which category often seems arbitrary at best. Meghan had the audacity to point this out, first privately in a letter, and then, when that didn't work, publicly to anyone who would listen. And for that, she's been painted as the villain in this story. But maybe, just maybe, she was simply asking for the same treatment that others were already receiving. As we watch this saga continue to unfold, with Harry and Meghan building their life across the pond and the royal family carrying on with business as usual, that letter to King Charles stands as a reminder that sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply asking why. Why are the rules different? Why can some people do things that others can't? Why is transparency so difficult? These aren't unreasonable questions, even if the institution you're questioning is around before electricity was invented. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next